G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Today's episode is one that I've had in the works for quite a long time. Had to pull a few favours to get this guest in here today. And it's going to be my little brother, Shaun Christie-David. Hey, buddy.
Hello, bro.
Hey, welcome on. Bro, if you weren't my brother, I'm not sure I'd be able to get you on here. Let me just, and this is maybe as a proud older brother, but when I talk through some of the achievements that you got, I know you hate this stuff, but I'm going to say it anyway because people need some context as to what you've done. If you're familiar with some of the venues that Shaun has, particularly in Sydney, Colombo Social, Kiev Social, Kabul Social, probably the most popular ones that you got in your portfolio under your brand. Played it forward. But let's just go through what you've done recently. So the inaugural Good Food Guide Innovator of the Year, non-for-profit emerging leader, Time Out's Hospitality Future Shaper, AMP awarded you Tomorrow Maker Award, national finalist at EY's Entrepreneur of the Year Awards in 2024. Your company, Played It Forward, received the Community Human Rights Champion by the Australian Human Rights Commission. This year you've had a massive feature on Australian Story. You met the King and Queen. I'm going to try and say this without tearing up. Featured in Forbes, SMH, ABC, UTS Business School Award. You were featured in Pat Cummins' new book, Tested. One of 11 Australians featured in there, and you've just been awarded a Stanford scholarship. Bro, let me just say, if this wasn't my little brother, I'd be like, dude, I'd have to pay someone like this to come on here.
Am I getting paid for this?
Mum will pay you. Speaking of mum, our mum is probably one of my most loyal listeners since day dot. Every time an episode comes out on a Monday, mum's shooting me a message going, love it, even though she has not a lot of idea what goes on in these conversations. But for me, the reason why I wanted you to come on is because, mate, you weren't doing this, your game a few years ago. So for people that are unaware of your journey, take us through, like, Played It Forward didn't exist, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And Sienna's 6, so she was 1. I remember coming to your restaurant, setting up Colombo Social when she was 1. And I'm just like, Shaun's got a background in finance, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you said, hey, I want to start a restaurant, I probably unsupportively probably laughed. And then the next question was, how on earth are you going to do this?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm doing it. And I think at that point, once anyone knows my little brother knows that once you dig your heels in and you make your mind up, there's no way backwards, it's only forwards. So for those that are listening, how does a 5-year journey culminate into this level of success?
I think for myself, it's right in the ups and downs. You said it, like, the idea started probably 3 or 4 years before we even took that first step into the restaurant, but sticking true to what you believe in, having a fundamental belief in the outcomes and what you want to achieve, being headstrong about them is one part of it.
Yeah.
But having more than just a business that you can rely on. And I think, when I go through the downs or the challenges or the issues that we face, I look after the journey of 100 people that would otherwise not have a job. I look after 3,000 people that might otherwise not have a meal. So having something else that motivates you, that keeps you focused and going. And when someone says, oh, this is a challenging time, I'm like, well, yes, it is. But if we don't do this, what is the resultant from that? And what could be the negative outcomes for many, many people that you care about and really want to be there for? So I think that gets you through the tough times. But I think being very maybe stubborn, but knowing that you're trying to create something that means more than that transaction or that business is the thing that really gets me through.
You say stubborn there, I think, and this episode is not a flex. It's not there's no ego in this. We're having a real open conversation. And it'll make sense once we get to the end of the episode how full circle we do come. But I think I can trace it back a lot. We grew up in the same household, very supportive parents that said we could do anything that you want to if you just put your mind to it. And I think when we grew up with that attitude, maybe it gave us a false sense of like self. We can do anything we want. And, this is what we've done. We've both created something. And our older brother, he probably flies very much under the radar. Yeah. Smart dude, CFO. He keeps a very low profile, almost to the opposite of us.
Yeah.
And having that grounding where it's like, we've come to this country. For those that are listening, we didn't grow up with like real privilege. We grew up, I'd say, lower middle class Australia, Southwest Sydney, but our parents put a lot of energy and effort into education, and that was kind of our ticket out of like working class into going. There's this country has so much opportunity. Yeah. Grab every opportunity this country will give you because it's based on merit, not on privilege, last name, or who you know. Yeah. And then at that point, it's like, now you got to find your own way as an adult.
Yeah. I think the underpinnings that we have, and while we don't have what would be privilege for so many people, we had the perspective of privilege for people that would otherwise look like us in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So we have this weird privilege where if we were still in Sri Lanka, Badiklo, Colombo, or wherever we could have been, our lives would have been very different. So we had a perspective of we again have something to live for and fight for because we got opportunities that no one would have got if we were there.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Mum had always told us was like use that opportunities that you have to do something with it, to the struggles and the battles that they fought or whatever it is, to use that to go out there and achieve something. And the luck that we had in so many ways was Mum was an educator and made sure that education was at the forefront of everything that we did. Are we naturally smart? Maybe that's not really the thing, but we were always taught to use education as a way out, to use that as a way forward. Mum was a childcare teacher. That's how much education meant to her. Yeah. And I think we were really lucky to have the support and Dad had his business. So we watched, we were educated in the real world and real time in certain things that we got to see that not many other people get to see. And I think that luck has enabled us to go out there. I think, we have points to prove. We want to go out there and we want to be an ambassador for the Western Suburbs. I'm a proud ambassador for Western Suburbs of Sydney. I think there's cultural diversity and talent and so much there. I'm proud West, proud to be Sri Lankan and Sri Lankan heritage or from the subcontinent, but also proud to be Australian and to give everything to this country because the opportunities and the blessings that we received here is something that we always want to be able to pass on to other people and to showcase. And I always consider myself one of the luckiest men in the world based on how we grew up and then what we get to do every day. And I think that's a real blessing.
Yeah, it's a real. But when we get to this position where you're like, this country will give you everything that you want and more. Yeah. You've just got to roll your sleeves up and grab the opportunities and take it. I think that's probably, you talk about education. This podcast is built purely on education, very much trying to help people build intergenerational life. We've seen what education can do in a lifetime. You see what property ownership can do in a lifetime. You see people that can't get into properties, refugees that come to this country, nothing on, but the clothes on their back. And purely through some sweat equity, they can turn that around very, very quickly.
Well, it's fascinating when we talk to everybody, we try to do entry surveys with as many people as possible. And, how do you feel now when you're starting out your very first job in Australia? And then what would your outcomes do you want to achieve? Like if you had a wish list of things, and I remember sitting down when we opened Kabul Social, and we had probably 9 Afghan women. Most of them had just arrived in Sydney. They'd been here for probably a month at that point. We'd given them training and English lessons and a few other things. And we said, what do you want to achieve? And all of them, 9 of them said they want home ownership.
Wow.
And that's the solidification of their time in Australia. And this is what they can do. They want to own a piece of land in Australia. And that's a huge thing that people want that. And one of them has got that. She's bought her first home.
That's incredible.
It's
absolutely incredible. One of the best themes that I want to go through for us today is you can't be what you can't see. And I'll give you some context. I speak to a lot of younger investors that no one in their circle is trying to do what they're doing. They're breaking new ground. No one in their family has bought multiple investment properties, but they've got this desire, yearning to kind of break the mold and do something that no one in their circle has done. For you, you mentioned before, we grew up in a dad running his own business, so we could see that you had the ability to run your own business in this country, which is what we've gone on to do. But you never saw anyone in the hospitality space.
Yeah, big time.
In fact, I've said it on the record, you're terrible in the kitchen at times, right? And it's funny how our lives shifted because I studied hospitality.
Yeah, exactly.
I worked in hospitality. I did cooking at home. You ate it, and you're pretty good at that. And you were finance. And then somehow our paths just completely flipped.
Yep.
I moved into finance. You moved into hospitality.
Yep.
And it was this amazing switch. But to go back to the question, you can't be what you can't see. So how do you break ground to go, I'm going to move into this, but I have no one as an example? Or did you have someone as an example?
I didn't have someone as an example in hospitality. Up until very early on when we started, when I saw Hassan from Earl's Duke Joint and Jacoby's and a few other bars, and he was like the first brown bartender that really made it, Sri Lankan guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we can do it. And I think, well, this is I'll reflect on it. I'll reflect on it because this time last year. I don't think I've ever told you, but you said this to me. You said this very thing, and you said, "Get your head out of your and it's not about you, dude. This journey that you're on is not about you. The things that you can do is to inspire people." And I've been very quiet, and I'm quite shy about some of the things that we've done.
Yeah.
And I've started to become a lot more vocal from that point.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't realize is what you said to me was true, that we never had that representation. We never had someone going out there and pushing these things and doing these things. So so I look at it now, and when I talk to younger people kind of making it, I'm like, what we can do in our world and the things that we can achieve is not really for us, but it's to pave the way and to cut the grass so that people can walk a lot easier behind us. That the rooms that we now enter into can become a lot more accessible to the next generation because someone's been there and they've made it.
Yeah.
They're there, and then they go, oh, cool, that person, Aaron, walked in. And he was cool, man. Maybe the next Sri Lankan kid will be like him, or the next, we say those things. And that hit me because I'd never considered it. I've always thought that if I talk about it, then that's gloating or boasting, and I don't want to do that. And I never did that for that reason. But I think that it's really to inspire people because hospitality was not for us when we were growing up.
It's not considered a career path at all.
No, it's not. And
we've both gone. All three, my brothers, we've gone to uni. We've gone to study postgrad. And
And people are like, oh, you're working. Like when I say it to people, and when people just ask me when I'm like an Uber driver or something like that, I just say I work in hospo. I work in hospitality. I work in restaurants, and they're like, oh, okay. It's not a career. It's not deemed as something. But what food has meant to us, and it's funny enough, I just brought you some food today.
He brought me some of Mum's cooking
because that's how we express things, and that's how we can change things, and that's how we express our care for people is through food and feeding people and sharing our culture. And I think there's that's how we grew up with hospitality is always the center of everything we do. You studied it, but I don't think you even need to study it. We had it in our DNA. That's how we grew up with loud food, loud music and people around and food and that kind of celebrations all the time. And I think we've never determined that as a lifestyle choice and things like that. But people love it. People love cooking. People love
it's something like breaking bread, mate. That's for sure, is there? So a decision to go out, and again, if you're listening going, where's the connection to property investing? Go with me here. This is all mindset. I say property investing is 20% finance and 80% mindset. Like just what you've done with your trajectory as well. Going out of your comfort zone means you effectively have to lead the herd sometimes that you're with. And that can be really hard, especially when you have an idea like what you do, which is no one can see the vision. You've got it in your head and everyone's around you going, buddy, is this the right move to be making? And you're leaving a safe job, you're leaving the comforts, you're going to something you don't know. And that voice can be very heavy compared to the inner voice when it's like, hey, I'm going against the odds here. So how does someone swim upstream when they've got a desire, when they've got a bit of fire in the belly and everyone else is trying to put that fire out?
Yeah, I think the loudest voice that we all have is the inner critic. I think that's the loudest voice, and I think being able to squash the inner critic And that voice that says maybe this isn't the right thing for you is the biggest obstacle that you can come past. Once you get past that, you can wash everything else out. I think if you want to go to someone that's trying to buy their first house and then saying, but my dream is to have 5 houses. People are like, oh, mate, you haven't even started. But no, you start with that dream and that's what you stay on. And you don't listen to people because they don't live your life. It doesn't really matter. I think what you've got to do is have the confidence and the self-belief that I can get to where I want to get to, what steps I need to take to get there, and listen only to yourself. Because I say that there's quantitative data, there's qualitative data, there's all these data sets, there's all these things there's all these models that you can look at and everything like that and analyze it. But really, the biggest test that I've always said is that gut feel that there's an intangible feeling that you feel. If you're on the right path to do something, it will open up and it will happen. And how I walk into any venue and say that's the venue for me, like that's the one that I want. And I've seen hundreds of restaurants. I've seen hundreds of spaces. I've seen places. And I'll walk in. It's the way that I like. And when someone says, how do you pick your venue? It's how I say, how do you pick your first house? How do you pick your first home?
Yeah.
You will know. You will just know. Yeah. And there's that feeling that you get where you go, that's it. That's the one. You can walk in there and you feel it. And that's the feeling that you've really got to go with. That is the loudest voice that you can ever have. And that's the one you listen to. You listen to your gut. You listen to the knowledge. And then you build your kind of data sets and everything around that gut. But I think we often rely so heavily on information or other people's opinions or other people's perspectives, but they can never give you that feeling. I think that's the one that you go with. And again, sometimes you might look at it and that it stacks up perfectly, but it doesn't feel right. Don't do it. Like the universe will tell you things. That really does. And I think that's my thing now is to really, really go with it. Really, and I remember going to check out 10 properties for the next restaurant we go with, and I felt it on the very first one. I'm like, oh no, maybe I'm getting carried away because I love the concept or I love what it is, and I really want something. And then the next 9 didn't feel that good, and we went straight back to that first one. I went, okay, that is the one.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks very much. Over the years, and I mentioned all the accolades, and they're a lag factor for all the work that happens behind the scenes, right? There's a power of what I say compounding actions. And take me through the actions that people don't see behind the closed doors. And again, in a investor context, this is where you find the team. You spend the countless hours. I've had so many calls with people recently going, I've spoken to so many brokers or spent so many buyers agents and you've had to do a bit of this heavy lifting. And I'm like, yeah, that's all called compound action, mate. It'll get you closer to where you need to because you're making sizable steps to get there, right? So it's like doing your reps at the gym.
Yep.
So what are some of the compounding actions that have taken you to get to this point that then you see the fruits of your labor?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll tell you about the things that didn't work if I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I relied on the initial success of my very first restaurant to think that will carry through. And okay, cool, we've got a formula and that's it.
But, I mean, the success of your first restaurant being Colombo Social, I mean, it probably didn't dawn on us at the time how insanely successful it was.
Yep.
Again, I'm like, this is my little bro's restaurant. So this first one, I don't know what's going on here.
Yep.
But Australia's most Googled restaurant for 3 months straight.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, and it was lines out the door. It was this and that. It was a great business model. It was amazing. We did things, and I thought that would just carry through. So what I didn't do is I didn't work on the foundations and the fundamentals for scalability, for growth, and to be able to build something that could last. Right. So you think arrogantly, oh my God, if I touch it, it's going to just mirror that.
There's a good word for this. It's called hubris.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you.
No.
I've had this chat with a few people. Like, it's a little. I won't say it's cockiness or what's the word? I've just lost it. There's no ego in it, but it's just more to say like you get a little bit confident.
Yeah. Oh look, I'll be pretty open about it, man. I was arrogant about it. I thought, I was. It was pure arrogance, man. I'll be the first one to say it. Like, and I thought that was just. And you know, we had conversations, and I've had conversations with other people like, hey, slow it down and do the things and set the foundations right, and maybe, And I said, no, I'm better than that. I can do it.
It's almost you had to learn.
Yep.
You had to learn for yourself.
Yeah.
Because hearing people is like, these people just putting my fire out.
Yep, exactly. And I think you had to do that. And again, like I'm the youngest of 3 boys. There will be always a rebellious streak in me. Do you know what I mean? You will, because you've told me these things and everything you've told me. And
You've certainly got a problem with authority now. There's no shadow of a doubt about that, which is probably why you didn't last in corporate.
Yeah, but you hear these things and you need to feel them for yourself. What I would always say is that you like, when you are doing these things, get your foundations right. Understand that if you, again, when it comes to property, building a great portfolio is amazing and things like that. And you can build a 10 property portfolio. But there are things that you need to do in the background. You need to ensure that your financial situation's right, that you've got the right accountant, that you've got the right team behind you, that you've got the right support network, not just from a professional standpoint, but a personal standpoint, that if you have a partner or a family, things like that, they are along for that ride, that they aren't, because they're riding these risks with you. They're riding the waves of up and down. They're riding these challenges with you in real time. And what they see is a different perspective to what you're seeing. What you're seeing that is a very narrow focus.
You're saying the method to the madness.
Yeah, you're seeing, you know what's going on. You can't articulate it. Yeah. You can't articulate, hey, by the time I get to 35 or in 6 years, I'm going to have 15 properties and that's all good. You may have that as a very high level thing, but that sounds crazy to most people.
Yeah.
So they don't understand what you're doing. And I think that they're seeing the ramifications, the impacts that it's having on you personally or whatever it is. And I think what I've learned now is to communicate better. To communicate things in real time. Hey, and I say it now, I'm struggling. I'm going through a hard time, or this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to get there. And talking to your networks, both as your, your brokers and your advisors, but also your friends is really important.
Yeah. Nice. So, I mean, you talked about scale there, and again, everyone's trying to scale, whether it's properties, whether it's businesses, for example. There's a double-edged sword to scale, right? Like you said, and there's blind spots that you will have that you can't ever see or imagine until they actually start happening to you and at you. And it's I think the real test is then how do you deal with that? And some people won't survive those setbacks or challenges, and they go, it's not for me, and they cash out. And then other people push through, and they're like, no, this is all part of the journey, what they call the hero's journey, and they go, man, I've got to push through this. And it's tested me. I don't know why, but in hindsight, I'll find out the reason why this has happened to me. And you're a bloody walking testament to the fact that when COVID shuts down so many industries, it probably shuts down the hospitality industry is probably one of the hardest hit, and that takes the wind out of your sails. Then there's a certain resilience that shows up going, I've got lemons, I'm going to make lemonade. If you can just explain to everyone what you did during COVID time, that I think really to put the entire business that you've got on a different trajectory. Yeah.
So we were 3 months into the business at that point. So we opened in November 19, and I think it was April where COVID hit, and we shut down. Right. So it was a Sunday that we had to shut the restaurant down.
Yeah.
That was it. So
I think everyone remember that Sunday national press conference, and I was like, here's what's happening.
Yeah, brutal.
Etched in memory.
Brutal. Yeah. But we had taken staff that had been seeking asylum. We had taken staff that had no family no family support in this country, and they were ineligible for benefits. They were ineligible for benefits like JobKeeper, JobSeeker, all these things did not allow international students or people seeking asylum and anything to access those. So they were pretty, So you've left the country, fled a war zone, come to this country, no job, no nothing, no safety nest as a migrant, and then we give you a job for 3 months. You finally got revenue coming in. You can start to build a life, and then it stops again. I couldn't live with that. There was that part of it, and there was that real, what do I do for these people? But then there was also, I spent 5 years working in Indigenous kind of health and working across communities across Australia around models of self-improvement. And those two worlds combined quickly. And I got 2 calls from Redfern and another agency out that way to say, can you help us? it didn't, again, I don't believe in coincidence or chance. These two things happened both at the same day.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we're going to do what we knew best. And again, the innovator of the year stuff is great. But I think what we did was we just went back to our childhood, and what Mum did for everybody was feed people, right? She would feed people, be it anybody. And she always said, it doesn't matter if you're the Queen of England or you come off the street, we feed you really well. And that's what really resonated with me. So we just started to donate food, package up what we had. I had like leftovers that we could never use again, right? So I just said, it was just this like thing that, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right? We'll just do it. Just give the food that we have that we're going to have to throw away that's really good quality and will last. But at least it's going to give someone something for that day. And no one knew how long COVID would last. No one knew what was going on. But then it became the movement that is now the movement. The movement was to
Mm.
cook high quality meals and donate it. We've donated now 660,000 meals across the globe, and 550,000 plus in Sydney, and that's how that happened. So I think it was taking a very community outlook and going, well, again, it comes back to that perspective of privilege that we had. Yeah, my business is shut down. Yeah, there's challenges. Yeah, there's complexities. Yes, it's a difficult time, but there's heaps of other people going through difficult times and utilising us as a benchmark to understand that we could be in a position to do something for those people. My team who are incredible, and small business. You've got a small business, man. You know them personally. You know their lives. You know their families. You know their kids. You know everything about them. You can't just drop them. I couldn't drop those people. They were so dear to me. But then also the communities that I've been working with for years before that as well. So I think that's how it started, and it kind of has evolved from there into something that, and again, a snap decision can sometimes change the trajectory of everything. And it wasn't thoroughly planned. It wasn't a very articulated workflow or anything like that. It was literally just go without anything but the right motives and the right intentions.
Yeah, well said, buddy. Well said. I caught up with Sam Gordon recently. One of the big things he said was you can tell how important someone is by the size of their problems. I'm going to say it again so it kind of sinks in. You can tell the importance of someone by the size of their problems. And so sometimes I'll get someone that's 6, 7, 8 properties deep, and they're like, now we're going to get legal advice, and now we're going to get these documents signed, now we're going to trust, and now they're like, dude, these are problems that are reserved for 1% of property investors in Australia that are in a position that they can afford to buy 6 or more properties. You have problems that are relative to where you are in your journey, that it's like when other hospitality businesses are failing, when other hospitality businesses are not doing well amidst the cost of living crisis, amidst rising costs of energy, salaries, food, for example, when rents are going up, for example, when expansion plans get stifled, like there's headwinds there, and you're like, but somehow you're managing to thrive. How does someone zig when everyone's zagging?
Well, we get compounded. You mentioned all those things, right?
Yeah.
So when the cost of living goes up, we see a drop in spend.
Yeah.
So a significant drop in spend per head.
Super relative. Yeah.
So petrol prices can be $2.10 and then it goes to $2.30. What happens to that 20 cents per litre is that comes out if you're going at discretionary spending budget, right? Yeah. Interest rate rise, whatever it is, will mean that our sector gets hit quickly. And this is same day data. If we watch when it happens, when the interest rate goes up and what people are spending that night, it is wild. Spending will go down by about 25% that night. Okay. And it will stay like that for 1 or 2 weeks at least after. These pressures have meant that customers aren't going out as much, and then they're also spending less. Right. So for us as an organization, that compounds to less revenue, less profit to go out there and do the social purposes.
Well, I mean, your expenses are high. They're fixed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, energy and all those other ones, mate, they go up like crazy.
Yeah.
But then we get compounded with the other side of our customer base, which is the 3,000 people that we're feeding. They now need more food because some other services are stopping, or there's just instead of having we went from 2,500 to 3,000 now. We'll go up to 4,000 soon because there's more charities that are asking us for food because more people are finding themselves below the poverty line that they've never experienced before. And our food is very humanity-based, so there's no questions asked, there's no nothing. It goes through a very nice process so that no one feels it's restaurant style, so they don't feel like it's cheap.
They don't feel like they're going to like the need a feed vans
exactly
or something,
right. Exactly right.
So there's a little bit of like
Yeah.
self-worth that they're getting the meal. Right?
Exactly. So we're now hit with both reduction in profitability, but then the main thing is trying to fund the meals that go out there in simultaneous, the simultaneous crash. So how do we do it? I think this is where, I mean, the constant juggling act is trying to find that balance. The ability to say no to people and say, hey, look, we just can't do that right now, instead of giving a substandard product or service. And I think just having, again, like I've got a very strong team around this that are so committed to what we do and so passionate about it that we just try to find a way, you know. Sometimes it's one of my chefs just jumping on the phone saying, hey, look, man, we need this from you as a meat supplier. And the supplier's going, yeah, cool, we've got this. And they'll give us more food during those times, or going out there and becoming smarter on our menu design in the restaurant. So some of our chefs that sit outside will come and say, well, maybe we can utilize this to save costs here. So therefore we've got the ability to stay afloat for another week to get the meals out. So it's having a team of people that are as passionate and committed to problem solving, because it's very easy to get caught up on the problem. And there's this huge circular reference that you can just sit in and talk about the problem forever, strategize meetings and this and that. And yes, it's valid and legit, but sometimes you've just got to act when you've got to act and do what you got to do with tight deadlines and just go and go. And again, I talk about gut. I know that gut feeling is that we will be okay, but we need to be there when people need us the most. There's no point spending 7 months planning this stuff because someone's gone hungry for 7 months.
Yeah.
There's no point trying to strategize about doing all this stuff because they probably might not be in the job market in 7 months' time because they just go, screw it, I'm going back home or whatever it is. So we've got to take a very quick lens on problems, look at it, analyze it, and then be solution focused.
Yeah.
And things like that. There's this very interesting quote that I once heard is that I'll come to me only with solutions. And I don't love that because sometimes your team aren't equipped to deal with everything. That they won't have enough knowledge to be able to build the solution, but they still need to be able to identify the problem and talk to you about it. Yeah. As a leader, they need to be able to come to you and say, hey, these are the problems we're going through. Can we solve it together? Versus only come to me when you have it solved. That's outside their remit sometimes, or outside their knowledge base. We put too much, therefore they don't identify the problems and tell you that, and therefore you find out later. So I think the earlier identification of problems versus waiting for them to come up with a solution is also there. And you can, I think sometimes 4 or 5 people getting together and solving these problems is really important for us.
Yeah, it's almost like a problem shared is a problem solved.
It is, right? It is, yeah.
I think that's probably where, again, we see people get stuck on their journey, again, to bring it into a property investing context. They're like, man, I've got this problem. A previous broker said, no, I can't do it. The accountants say, no, I don't. I've had so many accountants. This is a real uppercut, this one. So many accountants do not believe in property investing. They're telling clients, no, don't buy through a trust, don't buy through an SMSF. And they're the ones that are blocking your journey, or your current broker is just like not equipped to handle scaling portfolios. And they're like, they feel guilty that they're going to have to leave someone. I don't believe that's the case, or there should be no guilt in trying to find a better team to surround you on that journey, because you're only as good as the team that surrounds you. You are only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. I'm not saying it's that inner circle of the 5 people you can spend a lot of time with, but if in a professional journey, in a professional context, if you don't have good leadership, if you don't have someone that's a visionary in that team, what good is like all in like your strategy on the paper if you can't execute? And so that's why I talk to your point around a problem shared is a problem solved. Bring that problem to someone. If they can't answer it, don't take no for an answer. Go to the next person. Is it a yes? No. Go to the next person. And so then who's going to own your journey? Because if you sat there and gone, mate, COVID's not my business back, rising costs, I can't find good team, I can't get the right ingredients, costs have gone up, I have to pass on merchant fees to clients for paying customers, fuel's gone up, and you're sitting there looking for all the reasons to not succeed. And I'm looking at your team and your business going, hey man, not blowing any smoke, but these guys seem to be going, from strength to strength despite the bloody headwinds. The same can be said for so many of our investor clients that are going, despite 13 interest rate rises and cost of living pressures and just general life, they're still finding ways to scale their portfolios. I'm like, what's the common linkage here? There's got to be a certain element of resilience and perseverance in the right percentage that's getting awesome outcomes.
Yeah, but it's so easy to focus on. It's so easy to say those are the challenges, and that's it.
Yeah, because misery loves company, bro.
And that's where you will separate the good from the great, and the people that go, well, these are the situations that I've faced. How do I find the right people to get through that? And this is, I don't think that any journey and we talk about self-made and all these things. There's no such thing as that. I think that there is a need to find the right people, and even if it's just sounding boards. And I talk to you a lot of the times, and you will always solve someone's problem. I think that's your strongest part to you as an individual, and you actually love it.
It's funny you say that, and just this point, I've wondered why. The team will have it where they come to me. It's like this, and it just comes to me a little bit more like a lightning strike sometimes. I've done work on my values. I've got a personal coach, and we break this down. One of my top beliefs in the world is fairness. I love a level playing field. You're probably the same. Every mortgage broker in Australia has the exact same CBA product, exact same Westpac home loans. Nothing separates a broker. There's no price that I charge that's more or less than someone. Exact same product. But how do others do better, right? I love going to the gym because it's a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you've got money, no money, jeans, equipment. You walk in the gym, it's a level playing field to see who can actually show up and do their best. I love that about uni because it doesn't matter what school you went to. We all went to the same degree. It's a level playing field. So fairness is probably my number one attribute. And a very close second is creativity. And I unpacked this with my personal coach, Jody, and I was like, why is creativity showing up high? Because this is not – finance isn't creative. It's numbers. But then the way I attack a problem is creative, thinking outside the box, not taking no for an answer. You'd be the exact same way. It's like I think we had that as growing up. It was like, don't be helpless, man. Figure that out. You're part of this family. Figure out, don't come to me with a problem. Figure this out.
Yeah, maybe it is having three boys out, we weren't small dudes. Yeah, three alphas in the one room. But also we don't take no for an answer because that's not how we were raised, I don't think. And there's nothing, there are challenges, but I think what you want to be always doing and what you do very well is you look for a way out as and it's kind of not a game per se, but it's the most rewarding part.
Oh, it's the challenge. It's the thrill.
Because
there's nothing worse than learned helplessness. I hate it. I hate learned helplessness where people are like, I don't know, man, I'm just waiting for someone to tell me what to do. I was like, that is you're an adult, man. That is such helpless language.
Yeah. But in property, it's easier for a bank to just say no. It's easier for a guy there to not have to do any work and just go, well, I'm going to say no to that loan because that's the easiest part. For this part, it's going to be a bit more work and a bit more things. So realistically, if I've got a pile that big, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit and that's enough to keep us going. Yeah. But that doesn't help the person that really wants that property. That's your ultimate person, right? Is to make sure that they get what they want and to be able to build their dreams and to build what they want. Yeah. And our vested interest. And I always remember in finance, I had this very interesting call with this lady who we're looking after her finances and her. She called me and said, I need the funds released today because I need to get my kid into school to pay their tuition fees. Right. The tuition fees are due today and it's past 2:30. And she was talking to me. I'm like, oh, look, I'll do everything I can. Boom, talk to my payments team. Can you do this? No, we can't do it. We can't push it through. Computer said no, computer said no, computer said no. And I went, cool, 1 second. Put the lady onto the phone, put that customer onto the payment person. I said, you tell her then. Do you know what? This lady needs this. You won't do it to me because I'm just a person at the other, I'm just an internal person. So it doesn't really matter. I said, this lady is crying on the phone to me. I can do it. I just need you to press that one button. And they wouldn't do it. And I said, do it. Boom. It got done. Because where you sit versus where a bank clerk, and not offensive bank clerks or whatever they are, but they don't understand that customer, what they're going through. They don't have the same conversations that you have with them to understand their objectives. And you like your customers. You build rapport with them. You understand their dreams. You understand what they want. You understand how much this means to them. So therefore, you're going to fight because you want the right outcome for them, right?
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. There's something that I talk about, the success tax, and it's a conversation I have probably with my. I've got a small group of other dads that I hang out with, some good lads, and we talk about the success tax. And I think I may have mentioned this to you.
Yeah.
There's a success tax that has to be paid, and so some people will pay it, as they move up in life. Whether that's the property side, they've got to pay land tax or capital gains tax. That's a specific type of tax. Then other people in their careers, they probably spend less time with family, which means their family connection suffers, and there's a success tax that comes with being exceptional in their role, or their personal health struggles, or their mental health struggles, or their financial health struggles, for example. And these things can take its toll. So there's perceived success on the outside, but there's this inner turmoil in the inside where they're going, but this has come at a cost. So your success on the outside, people see your highlight reel on social media. Mate, I've been with you where the chips are down, your back's against the wall, things aren't going your way, and I can see the success tax that you've had to pay. So take people through, like we break down that social media highlight reel and go, mate, what happens behind the scenes that people don't see that you've had to front up the success tax for?
Yeah, the world on social media is very glamorous, It's
crap.
But that's not the reality. I suppose where I've had to go through is failing businesses, understanding that, understanding the ego hit that takes, understanding the sleepless nights, the hardships of going through the darkest places. When will I have enough money next week to be able to pay the staff? There's times where I'm like, mate, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through this. I'm not sure I can pay everybody. Somehow the money's there. But I think the success task will always be, for myself, was questioning myself. Am I the imposter syndrome? Because you do get people coming up to you and saying, oh, congratulations, you are so successful because you've got 3 restaurants. Yeah. I've got 3 restaurants that are losing money. Do you know what I mean? I've got the challenges that this has. So like what you've now got this imposter syndrome at all times, and like you don't know what is going on behind the scenes. You don't understand the sleepless nights. You don't understand the enormous stress, the pressure that builds on you, the failed relationships, or the times that I don't get to spend with your girls.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that I have to take off every week and go, I've got to be there, and I can't be there. I can't be, or I can't even be present when I am there.
Oh, that's a big one. You're there, but you're not actually there.
You're not you're physically there, but you're not paid attention to anything.
Yeah.
Those are the challenges that people face. And I think where I got to last year when I was really down, 3 businesses had fallen. The world would just become overwhelming. Things had been really, really rough, dealing with so many challenges that every business owner faced, but then compounded with everything else, was a dark place. And then I suppose where I got to was, what will define happiness? Is it, and again, we look at happiness for an investor.
Yeah.
Is happiness a rate of return? Is happiness a number of properties? What is happiness for them? Yeah. What happiness was for me was being able to enjoy a bit of time off, being able to enjoy it. So I pulled everything back and figured out what my ideal day is, what I want from life, what do I want to do, and what kind of work do I want to create. And that was the big piece. And everyone's happiness is measured differently, and there's no one measure to success or happiness. But then being able to understand, if I was to look at myself in the mirror in 2 years and say, did you do what you wanted to do? Did you achieve these things? And are you happy? That was what I wanted to do, and I wasn't happy. And I think even if it was success, and perceived success or even internal success for what the world sees as success is different to the success that I wanted to achieve. And I think being able to go on a Saturday and have coffee with mum, or to go and, to one day just go and spend that down the coast, or to do something, that's success to me.
Yeah.
It's not really the financial success or that, but being able to have a lifestyle that you can appreciate and enjoy. And I think that you do what people deem as successful, and you go towards that. But I think what the biggest learning I took about that was to build your own success.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So well said. Yeah. Again, weave in what this means for you, right? If you're investing in yourself by listening to this, and if you're investing in property. When I talk to people, I'm like, ultimately what they want, they throw out a number. I want 150K net passive. I'm like, cool, tell me why, what's going on? It's like, I don't know, they made this number up, and you're living someone else's dream here, for example. I'm like, I really peel this back. I'm like, what do you want here? And ultimately it boils down to, I want freedom. I want some flexibility. I want to have some choices in my life, whether that's I choose to work less or I can choose to work more, or a job that I love. My family can go on holidays. I'm not looking at the prices on menus, for example. We know we've got a life of abundance, and then how we show up, and property then becomes a vehicle to get there. That's all it is. Property becomes a vehicle to cash out and live your dreams. And so I speak to people, it's like, we can add 3 more properties, but it's almost like a diminishing rate of happiness, right? You can add 3 more restaurants.
Yep.
There's some diminishing level of happiness there. It's like, actually, I was a little bit, I hit a sweet spot here, and the incremental growth has actually made my life miserable,
100%.
harder, not enjoyable, not financially rewarding. We could add 4 more properties into the mix. I guarantee you, most people go, nah, not for me. I'm happy where I am. And there's no, you've given up on your potential when you say I'm happy here. I think it's the ultimate, like you're comfortable in your own skin. To go, this is my sweet spot. This is where my level of happiness is. This is where my sleep at night factor is as well. I think you've gone on that journey. There's definitely an aura change for you, which is, hey mate, you probably had the hunger to conquer the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But just to go, at what cost is it coming at?
Correct. The word freedom is what everybody chases, and I think financial freedom.
If they can articulate it, that's probably half the battle, bro. You speak to them like, I want this, and like you keep asking why. It's like, but I just want to have some freedom over my life and choices.
An arbitrary number isn't freedom. An arbitrary target isn't freedom, because that will move. I mean, I always say when we were kids and someone would say you're going to earn $10,000, you're like, what do you mean $10,000? Crazy. Then you get to $100,000. Then I want to make $150,000. Those numbers will always change as you get more successful. The benchmark on freedom, it could be very, very clearly defined, which is I want 3 hours a day to do this. And now I know I've got my morning routine. I want to wake up at X time. And I want to spend an hour by myself, going to the exercising, having a coffee, chilling out, doing something. That is my measure of success now. And I think freedom is what we all chase. And there is nothing wrong with building systems to get there. And property to me is the greatest way for freedom, because what you're able to do is build a long-term thing that will last, that will go forever. And that's great. But again, digging deep into the motive for that, and not going less around the ego number and more around the actual less ego number, which is, what do I want to do this for? For who do I want to do it for? And what can I do to get there? And when will I be happy?
No, spot on. Yeah, the ultimate flex for a lot of investors is how many properties do I own, for example. It's like how much a portfolio is worth. I'm just going to challenge you on that. If you're listening, it's that's the goal. Just dig a little bit deeper and to go, but what am I actually seeking here? And is this going to take away from my life, or is this going to add to my life in terms of its abundance as well? Because your success, and you probably see this in your own journey, buddy, your success doesn't come at the expense of someone else's. And I think that's probably where a lot of people get at it, which is, I want to take more, and it's going to take away from others. Like, man, there's enough out there for everyone. We can all and I think where this mission is on the potty, where your mission is, hey mate, we want people to come on the journey with us. We're trying to win in life. We want people to come on. Not everyone is going to come on the journey with us, and that's probably something that you and I feel deeply, which is we're having to leave behind a few people, which is not our style. We're like, hey mate, we're all coming. We're all going in the same direction.
But why you wrote your book was based on the happiness that you had when you first bought your property. Right? And giving that joy to other people. Right, that's success for you. When you hear a first homeowner buy their first home and celebrate that's massive, right? And I think that joy is something that we should be celebrating. And I think that what I would love to hear a lot more of is, hey, I remember that moment, and I facilitated someone else to get there. And that could just be by someone that's got 15 properties to go and talk to someone and mentor a young person to get up there and buy their first property. Because that will probably be a lot more rewarding than another $100,000 in their bank account. And it sounds weird, but like the joy that you get out of that and that satisfaction of doing this. And I know I'm in a very lucky position to be able to facilitate so many people with their first jobs. And the happiness that they have, like I will walk into any one of my venues and I get 10 thank yous daily from someone saying, hey, thank you for this. Like, again, that's huge to me. And I don't talk about it a lot because it's uncomfortable, but that level of success is worth more than any money. It's worth way more. And my chef, who you know very well, John, he could earn 3 times what he earns.
Oh, yeah.
But
He's an absolute weapon. Yeah.
His whole job is to go, man, I'm facilitating something bigger than me. And I think that's that. There's been lots of studies around income versus happiness.
Correct.
And
it's actually funny when you talk about that sweet spot. Apparently it's around 80K.
Yeah, it was 120K.
Maybe 80K.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, I think it was probably about that. And then it just drops. It's
I could tell
inverse thing.
The more you earn, and it's an absolute privilege when you start to earn more. But, geez, mate, your lifestyle starts to go up, and it can quickly go out. I see so many people that feel like on paper they're asset rich, but bank account, they're cash flow poor, and their happiness is kind of related to that bank account. I call it state of mind equals state of wallet. And so that wealth being factor, where your whole well-being is based on your wealth. We're just trying to move the needle on that and go, hey, mate, don't define yourself purely by that bank balance. Define yourself by the quality of the company you keep, the way you're giving back to others as well, the way that you're showing up, the way that you may be bettering yourself. And I think if we just round out this conversation talking about compounding, the whole premise people invest is to get that compound growth. And they say compounding is the 7th wonder of the world. The same can go for your actions. You talk about compound actions. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do to round out 2024, start 2025, compounding with good small habits, whether that's a gym run on a YouTube, whether that's an extra walk around the block to burn off some calories, whether it's shedding a friendship that's not serving you, or going, hey, look, I'm going to find someone in my corner that's going to help me grow and do better, or contribute to a charity like what you do, bro. If you can find ways that uplifts the soul, I think the financial side will definitely take care of itself.
Exactly right. And I had this conversation with a bookkeeper, and she said, why don't you pay yourself X?
Yeah.
You should be paying yourself first. And I pushed back on it. I said, no, I pay my community first. That's the constitution that I've set up. I will make sure that the people that we said that I'm going to promise 3,000 meals a week to, they get that. Everything else is fine. But that was what I determined as the first payment to go out. And there was an ethical composition that we wrote into our constitution to say that this occurs no matter what. And therefore everything else relied on that. So I think, building something bigger and utilizing a passion. It doesn't have to be charity. It can be whatever you want, the passion to be done. But to know that there is a higher purpose to what you are doing with your wealth, and to be able to use that to use the privileges and the advantages that you have to be a property investor to go out there and build whatever it is you want to build. And that again, that's at everyone's discretion. But to be able to say, with my income or with my wealth and with the things that I'm building for, I'm going to be building. It could be intergenerational wealth. It could be for family. It could be for this. It could be for the holiday that you've always wanted. So cool. I'm going to put away that because that's what I've always wanted to do every year. But having a goal that isn't just a number, but a resultant action on the back end of that number will allow you to really invest in this, to be committed long term, and to be able to commit and say, I am going to, because I know that this is what's going to happen. It's going to make that thing there, whatever it is going to make me happy, and I want to do this more. I think that's.
Nicely said, bro. You're a legend. If people want to get in touch with you, I know one of the best ways to support the mission is jump into one of the restaurants. So if you're in Sydney, Kabul Socials in the Met Centre, Wynyard, Colombo Socials out at Enmore, Kiev Socials at Chippendale. I know you do work inside some of the jails, youth jails as well. You do some catering work with the Swannies. I know you're You're a busy boy, so thank you very much for coming in here. I appreciate, like I said, been trying to snag you for a while, but
this is the one podcast that I volunteered to be on ages ago as well. So it's the only one that I voluntarily entered into, which is great.
Thank you, mate. I truly appreciate it. I often get text messages from clients going, "Is Shaun your brother?" So I'm affectionately known as Shaun's brother these days, as opposed to Aaron. And they're like double take going, "I think you guys are related." I just don't have the beard these days to match it. But like I said, I want to bring my brother in here because I'm saying this journey is built purely off mindset and tenacity. And if you have that ambition to grow and succeed in your portfolio, we want to be those partners to help you on that journey. So this episode's never about cloak and dagger for sales or trying to flog more loans. It's absolutely not the mission at all. It's trying to help you grow and succeed in your own journey, that you get, one, comfortable in your own skin, but two, galvanize in your strategy, that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you've loved this episode, look, I love when people reach out, drop us messages. I'm thrilled when the messages come in that people listen and I get to connect with you and talk to you. Even better. But if you want to follow Shaun on his journey, we'll include links to their socials and their website as well. Hey, that's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.